Hey everyone, welcome back to the Skilled Personnel Network and the L&D Companion. I'm absolutely delighted to be back on again. Liza, I'm very, very excited about tonight's webinar. It's a talk that Christina and I have been thinking about for quite a long time. It's a topic that's very close to her heart, and through that, she's brought on her amazing team who I'm very, very honoured to be joining us tonight. So before I allow them to do their introduction, a quick bit of housekeeping. There will be a presentation. This will be quite a sobering, but nevertheless very, very important webinar topic. We will be we'll be debating some things that are highly emotive. I just want everyone to feel free to share whatever they want to share on during the chat, and I'll do my best to get any of those questions over to the group who will also be looking at them. But this was a very, very important topic for me to bring across onto the L&D Companion, which is why we made it a free to attend event. And for those that watch it that feel they will be keen to share it with colleagues, it will be recorded and we will be sharing it in the next sort of couple of weeks, ready for other people to watch. So without further ado, I am delighted to introduce you to Christina, Julie and Martina, who I let them do their intros and we will then crack on with the presentations. Thank you, guys. Who wants to go first?
Christina.
As you called me first, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Martina. And thank you, Fody and Nick. Hi, everyone. Good evening. We are delighted to be here today. With Fody, we have discussed. I am an associate professor of technology-enabled care, and I think it's really important for me to discuss about positive working environments, but also how we can tackle negative working environments. And I'm delighted to bring with me my colleagues who are in different ways, either by training or by experience, or both experts in the topic. And I'm excited to have them with me here today. So I work at City St George's, University of London. Thank you.
Shall I go next, Martina? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Hi. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Julie Hendry. I'm also an associate professor at City St George's, and I'm based down at the Tooting campus. So I am a therapeutic radiographer by trade, and I've been doing that for quite a wee while and been in education for the last 17 years. I did my educational doctorate on caring, compassion, kindness, all of those sorts of aspects that really are important to me as a person and as a professional, be that in radiotherapy or in education, and also as a leader and compassionate leadership. So really, really pleased that and honoured actually that Christina asked for me to take part in this, Fody as well. Thank you for being so welcoming. So looking forward to talking with everyone this evening.
Thank you, Julie. So a quick hi from me. I'm Dr. Stamatia Papathanasiou. I'm a senior lecturer at City St George's University. I'm really happy to participate into this event, as I think this topic is so important. It's actually a fundamental thing. It's fundamental for your well-being, for your safety, for your performance. And I'm so happy to participate and happy to see lovely discussion topics and go through this. It's so interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Martina. Thank you, everyone. And well, I know we're going to share the slides now. We're going to, motor on. But one of the things I was going to say is I've just come from the UKIO, which is for everyone, I'm sure, who knows, but who doesn't know, that's the annual Congress. And one of the things that resoundingly came through is that I think we do need to be more kinder to each other and to ourselves. I think that the latter part we're not very good at. I hope just throughout this discussion, I think know that we're all in this very challenging journey at the moment on the front line, and we've just got to do our best to know what practical guidance we've got. So on that sort of note, over to you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Fodi. So I'm kicking things off, but we would love to hear from everybody as we go through the evening. So I'm an absolute fan of Nelson Mandela, so I have to have that quote there before we start talking about kindness, is just to say there can be no greater gift than that of giving one's time and energy to help others without expecting anything in return. And I know that, we get a salary at the end of our professional lives, working years, but even so, we give a lot of ourselves, and I think that isn't necessarily with anything back from those we're helping, be that our colleagues, or be that patients, or be that students. So thanks. We'll move on then to the next slide. Thank you. So just because I don't want everybody getting completely bored with hearing my voice, right from the start, we're going to ask you what kindness, as we're talking kindness in the workplace, what does that mean to you in a workplace context? So Martina's very kindly put together a Padlet, which if you scan that QR code with your phone, it should enable you to get access to the Padlet, which is anonymous. To start just dropping some ideas in there. Of course, people can type in the chat as well. That's absolutely great. And I've put a link there to, I could have put loads more slides in here, but I do need reining in. So I've just put the link there, which I guess we'll be sending around the slides maybe to people. Random acts of kindness. So a UK concept of the Mental Health Foundation and Mental Health Week, and how actually kindness can be so instrumental in and helping our own mental health as much as those that we interact with. And also the asterisk there is just to say, commonly words like kindness, caring, compassion are often used interchangeably. There are slight nuances between them, but we're not here to define in an educational way at the moment. But just while everyone's filling that in, I just wanted to give a bit of an example, because we often hear about empathy as well in that mix. So we know of the sympathy. I'm, as an example, I'm really sorry your wife has cancer. That's sympathy. Empathy, I'm really sorry your wife has cancer. Well, when I heard I couldn't sleep, really affected me. And then onto that, we get the compassion. And compassion is the enactment of empathy. So it's that empathy, but wanting to do something about it. So I'm really sorry your wife has cancer. I know how hard chemo can be. It's exhausting. I can take some time to come by at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, pick the children up for you and take them to school, if that would help. So empathy is great, but compassion, and I would say as well, kindness comes into the next steps. Are we able to pick up on those, Padlet, or should we come to that a bit later?
No, I'm seeing them coming through already. Actually, some really important points. So on the part of what words, what word comes to mind when you think of workplace kindness? We have friendship, we have caregiving, helping others, support and true collaboration, compassion, looking out for each other, respect for others, and support, noticing distress, being there for each other. There's a real theme, placing value on others. They're really coming through. Wow. Being civil, listen compassionately. I don't know if that's. I don't know if it's my cat. Is it the cat? Is it the cat? So in terms of what helps kindness thrive in the workplace, we have team, fair and transparent leadership, psychological safety, working together. There's some, what barriers exist.
Wonderful.
There's quite a few coming through here. We can come back to them, Julie,
Brilliant.
obviously.
Brilliant. That would be great. Thanks, Fody. So if we just go on now to the next slide, and just some thoughts here about what kindness means, and we've picked up on those and so much more. But there are aspects of kindness where it's the coming together of our emotions, our thoughts, our actions, and our behaviours. And there are some benefits. We're not going to go into those hugely at the moment, but what I did want to just pick up from that is that it does that practitioner benefit, and that came out in my research, that actually through demonstrating caring, compassion and kindness, we benefit from that as individuals as well, not just the recipient, for want of a better word. And there is this ripple effect of kindness where when you have kindness that is demonstrated, or you're receiving that, or you're in a culture of kindness, then that is a positive ripple that goes throughout. And what would we want more for our workplaces, if that's right, for our workplace, where we would want that compassionate ripple effect of kindness and supportive communities for us to live, work and thrive in. So next one, please. Thank you. So, of course, I'm a radiographer, I'm an educator. I have to stick in a bit of policy, don't I? And just to remind us that actually we speak a lot about working and demonstrating and acting compassion for our patients and for our students. But actually, we need to be in receipt of that compassion, caring and kindness from our leaders, and from those that should put us in a position where we can be trusted, where we can be listened to, where we're treated with respect, and that we are given what we need to deliver the compassionate care towards our patients and for our students. And that it's that care for the carers. If we don't have that care for the carers, we're not going to be in a position where we can enact that care, compassion and kindness. So that comes from the NHS Constitution on the left there, or on the right, whichever way it's looking for you. So all things that we are very familiar with. And I would say we won't get that for patients or students if we don't have that for the staff as well. Thank you. So thinking about what compassion, and I would say please consider compassion, caring, kindness. Although a lot of my work centred on compassion in my doctorate, so there is a lot that I brought out here from that, and it does have an educational slant towards it. I won't go through it in huge detail, but if we have a caring higher education teacher, there are two aspects that was suggested by Walker and Greaves, that firstly, they are actively developing relationships with students. And secondly, that trust and individualization within those relationships. And what I found with my research was trying to separate from students and patients. It was the same. There was no separation. And I would say that this also goes to our patients, to our students, and also to us as collaborative teams working together. If we interact with our students and we have insight into them as individuals, we can be authentic and we can consistently support them. And if we have that demonstration of compassion and care for our students, for each other, then we can develop and stimulate a culture where there's growth, where we can effect change, where people feel empowered and are going to be more successful in their teaching, in their learning, and just actually enjoyment, I would say. And that all staff have to really enact an emotive, caring, moral practice towards their students, as we would also enact an emotive, moral, caring practice towards our patients. But I say we need, I sound like I'm on my soapbox here, but we need to also have that for each other. We need to be emotive and caring and have a moral practice for those within our teams or anyone that we are working with. It isn't just the benefit for us, and it isn't just for the benefit for the service, but it is the benefit for everyone, really. So a couple more slides on compassion explored, if we could move on to that. Thank you. Emotion, we cannot remove emotion from what we do as clinical radiographers, as educators, in a team, building relationships and embracing those emotions. Now, often it's thought of that if you're emotive, you can't deliver, you're not professional. Well, I think that needs to go, because that is without a doubt not what much literature says to us. So thinking from a teaching point of view, a caring teacher, we've got all those aspects of empowerment, having humanity at the fore of what we do. It is deeply embedded within equality and social justice, and making sure that we bring in an education setting that we help add to the social capital that all of our students might have. And it's important that we role model that to our students and to each other. And I would say, thinking of leaders in the workplace setting, we need, there comes a point when a leader needs to step forward, but generally that non-hierarchical setting, that inclusivity, that collaboration, and that goes back to Freire, that is a very well-known name in educational and writing. Back as 1970. I was very young then. So that non-hierarchical setting benefits everyone. It isn't something that will interfere with the service delivery. It will enhance the service delivery. And relationships are key to what we do, whether we're learning, whether we're caring for and about our patients, whether we're caring for and about our students. Thank you. So some of you may have heard of Carl Rogers. I'm sure you have, quite an eminent psychologist, and he had a humanistic approach towards self-acceptance and growth, and knowing that none of us are perfect, but I'm enough with what I do. And I've got some notes here because I can't remember it all. So this in a very brief summary is things like student-centered learning. So shift from the rigidity of academic practice to being student-focused. Facilitating teaching rather than didactic teaching, so engaging an interactive setting. And the emotional and psychological safety, and we'll hear a bit more about psychological safety. We need that non-judgmental, supportive environment. And I would say that these three, and the final one, holistic development, would cross over into workplace as well. That emotional and social growth that we have, where we're nurturing individuals, and that holistic development will only be for the good of what we do as a team, with our patients and with our students. Thank you. So a good read if you can get hold of Carl Rogers. An even better read, Carl Rogers, is Bell Hooks. So this Bell Hooks just died, I think, about 5 or so years, or maybe 10 years ago now. And they were an American-born author, a feminist, and a social critic, and actually founded the writings on intersectionality of race, capitalism, and gender. So speaking up against systemic oppression. And if you do get a chance to read the book, I was going to read an extract, but I think best if you go and investigate. It really urges society to redefine love, so hence all about love, as a conscious choice to challenge that dominant oppression, and to make a difference to society. And I, sharing something personal, I've been told I'm too emotive. You can't care for all the students. You're not the mother to all of them. Well, many of them know me as their uni mummy, and I'm happy with that. Because for me, it is all about the love. I would want to know that my children were in a position in university or wherever they are, and in the workplace, where they are nurtured and they are cared for and about. And love doesn't just have to be a relationship love with a partner or your children or your cat. It can be something that we can all embrace and bring to the workplace and have that as a professional love, I would say. And bell hooks says. So moving on. Just also to say that inclusivity, and I think I've touched on this already, and that idea of being compassionate in our learning and teaching promotes understanding, reduces prejudice, and strengthens social integration. We all have something to bring to the table, whether we're students, whether we're in the workplace, whether we're with our patients, and sharing that power, it just builds us all up, and that has to be what those compassionate, kind relationships are about. Next slide, please. Thank you. So somebody called Hendry did this bit of work, and took me a wee while to do it, but I got there in the end. And it was about caring and compassion. And that diagram that, forgive me for lots of you have seen it before, it does tend to pop up quite a lot. So caring, we know, is nebulous, it's hard to define. And I would say caring, compassion, kindness. Let's talk about those as the Holy Trinity. So caring, it's very hard to define, but we know when it isn't there. It's a shared emotional connection that goes beyond the classroom, the workplace, or with our patients. And it is applicable all round. And what I did get from my doctorate, other than my personal growth, was the theme of caring for, caring about patients, which I will come on to in a minute. But that wheel really was born out of the literature. So caring can encompass all of those 12 aspects that you can read on there. So I won't go into detail. But for that to happen, we need an emotional involvement. We need therapeutic relationships. And that, I would say, is equally the case in the workplace. I was going to say workshop, in the workplace. It's born of self-awareness, of virtue, of our own humanity, and of our own moral values. And I couldn't ever understand, I'm caring, I'm compassionate, why isn't everybody? And I did have to admit that there is this need for a caring culture. And if that caring culture isn't there and you're holding tight to your values and you're trying to enact them on a daily basis, it becomes very, very difficult. And we can get that occupational socialization where people that maybe are caring and nurturing are in a situation where they can't enact their values. Everyone else is not developing and showing and enacting that, so their values become warped, let's say. So next one, please. Another bit that came, findings, was about caring for, caring about. And just briefly, again, I tried to distinguish that between students and patients. Caring for is the practical aspects, it's task focused, it's not necessarily connected, and it can be done without knowing the individual. So patients can get their appointment list, we can get the students their exam timetables. Caring about brings in that emotion, that feeling, it's individualized to the person, it's a relationship building, it's reciprocal because we gain from it as well, and there is benefit to the practitioner or the colleague in the workplace. It's connected, and it's about people going above and beyond, not, if we think back to Mandela, for reward, but because it is that moral virtue. I won't go through the other bits, that's just a few more of the findings, so we'll move on if that's all right, please. So I was doing a talk a year or so ago, Association of Radiography Educators, and I came up with this idea with a kaleidoscope of caring. It is all these different things coming together, and it's beautiful when it comes together like a kaleidoscope. And it's linked to things like belonging, social justice, which is part of who I am, I would say, a push for social justice, But we also there's also the altruism, that giving of yourself. It can have a religious connotation or it can have a spiritual connotation to it, but it doesn't have to. It is also linked to trauma and self-esteem, and that's another piece of work that I'm looking at with some colleagues at Tooting as well. That sometimes those with trauma can often be the most caring, compassionate, kind people. Doesn't mean that if you haven't trauma, you're not. And what's really, really important is that need for self-compassion and caring, because we need to care for the carers. And that includes our leaders, our colleagues, our patients, everyone, that culture of care. And just something, I don't know if anyone else has come across it, is the inverse care law. And it was really from a medical point of view, and it was highlighted back, as you can see, by Tudor Hart back in 1971, that the disadvantaged populations, they need more healthcare than the advantaged population. But it's the inverse care law, because they're the ones that get less. And that is that injustice in healthcare and social inequalities. And it isn't just in healthcare. Does it happen in the workplace? Does it happen with our students? Something else for us to think about. And I think I'm coming towards the end now, so bear with me. There's my little baby, Mary. So for those of you that think, oh, you know, compassion, it's all this fluffy stuff. Mary's there because she's fluffy. But I just wanted those of you who might be very technically minded, because we're radiographers possibly, compassion is linked. Oh gosh, this is where I'm a bit out of my comfort zone. I did have some MR images, but I thought Christina's here, I can't talk about MR. I might get it wrong. So compassion there are actually things that can be demonstrated on a MRI that shows that there are things that change in the brain. The left inferior frontal gyrus, right cerebellum, bilateral middle temporal gyrus, caudate nucleus, all these things are actually linked to physical areas in the brain, and through MR we can actually visualize differences, and it is linked to neural activity as well. So I wanted to put that in just for those that are saying it's all just fluffy stuff, but actually there are facts behind it as well, that it does happen in neuroscience. And Mary's cute. Next one, please. So just thinking, I think this might be my last slide, about self-care and the practicalities of caring and self-kindness and self-compassion. So we can cultivate that around others, but also we need to think about, and I'm very good at saying it, and I will put my hands up and say I'm not very good at doing it, normalizing self-care, normalizing caring, kindness, humanity, love, as Bell Hooks says. Some of the things that we can do in that types of self-care, I do some of them, and I'm getting better as I get older to think about what I should do. But we all need a bit of this. But what I would say is, rather than us having to leave work, go home and think about, I need to manage my stress, I need to go out into nature, I need to, you know, eat a healthy dinner, go for a walk, go to the gym. I don't go to the gym. More than that, what about if we get that self-care and that reciprocated care in our workplace setting? What could we achieve? What if we brought back humanity? What if we brought back kindness? The sky is the limit, I would say, to what we can do, what we can achieve, and actually all feel a little better for it at the end of the day. I think that's my last slide. Yeah, thank you. So then just for us again to think about, how does caring, kindness and compassion feature in your own practice? Or are you the recipient of that? Are you enacting that? Thank you.
Yeah, Julie, thank you very, very much. I think we're going to move on to, are we coming on to your slides now, Christina, or is it Martina's?
I just want to take a minute to thank Julie, because I learned so much, Julie. And I actually made a note of the self-care bits. These were so well thought of. Thank you very much. And also
I
all the
didn't do that.
I think it's so important we forget about that. Before I start, I would like to say two things, and then I'm going to put something in the chat. The first thing is that, unfortunately, kindness is not the default system in our, body. They say, and this is for sure, the kindest people are the smartest people in a room, because kindness is an evolutionary thing. The first humans on Earth, they learned to recognize anything different to them as alien and hostile, and they had to fight it to survive. So it's like unkindness is a survival, a very primitive survival instinct, and it shows, someone has not evolved. So the kind people are those who have grown beyond that survival mode into actually giving to society, into humanity, into love, true love. And loving others and giving to others without expecting anything in return is an advanced emotion. So it's very important to say that. The second thing I would like to say, Julie so nicely showed us the many ways by which kindness impacts society, people, students, patients, radiographers, and practitioners. There are many nice comments for your talk, Julie, in the chat, by the way, so you can read them, hopefully. So there are so many impacts. And I think these are important on a human level. I think the organizations, the professional bodies, the universities, the hospitals would invest more in kindness if they realized the economic benefit of kindness, if they knew how much money a kind employee saves in the organization, how much reputation it adds to the organization in rankings, in satisfaction from patients or from students or national rankings. I don't think people realize that kindness as an evolved emotion has very true economic benefits. I believe there is an economist who is actually working on that. As I'm going to speak about not so kind things, I'm putting in the chats, because this is a trigger warning. Some people might feel quite emotive about the things I'm going to discuss, because they might have had personal experiences of negative behaviors, unkind behaviors. So how to get help if you feel extreme distress or intense mental anxiety from the things I'm going to say, because I might be scratching wounds here which have not closed yet. So my suggestions are: one is your GP. You can get a referral to your GP. You can refer yourself to your GP, your nearest emergency department, Mind, and I just put a link in here, which is a charity for mental health, and the Samaritans. So I'm not intending on saying anything too stressful, but I think it's important for you to be prepared to hear these things, because these things are happening every day. And the reason of my presentation is to try and get you prepared and a bit more alert, because things might be happening. You might be feeling you are at fault, and in reality, it's not your fault. You're doing everything right. It's just you are in an environment which is negative. And I'm going to speak about this negative environment, which has many different names. I'm going to mention many names. It's not an exhaustive list. And I'm going to speak about bullying, harassment, discrimination, and how we can, perhaps I'm going to scratch the surface, because I know Martina and Julie and all of us are going to discuss later how to address these things, but just give you some definitions which come from a lot of websites, which I put at the end. So next slide, please. So bullying is a persistent, offensive, intimidating, malicious, or insulting behavior, which may involve the misuse of power through ways which have the purpose or effect of undermining, humiliating, denigrating, or injuring the recipient. Bullying usually involves a repeated course of behavior, often in the context of authority or status. So usually the bully is in a higher status. There's a power imbalance between the bully and the bullied. But power does not always mean being in a position of authority, and can include both personal strength and the power to coerce through fear or intimidation. And it can take any form. So speaking about safety, I'm going to speak about that later as well. It can take any form. It can be physical bullying, but it can also be verbal or non-verbal contact. And this is the most difficult one to evidence. I have to say that based on the Harvard Business Review report in 2022, more than 50% of people have admitted they have been bullied in their workplace. More than 50% have admitted. Next slide, please. So we don't realize sometimes that bullying is happening because we don't know the full presentation of it. And I would like to say some ways by which bullying can occur, and some are very easy to comprehend and understand, but others are a bit more innocuous. So being shouted at, if someone is using profane language, being sarcastic towards someone, ridiculing or demeaning others, taunting or making derogatory remarks about an individual's appearance, or using insults as a way of humiliating others, deliberately ignoring or dismissing the views and opinions of others or avoiding someone, deliberately excluding an individual from meetings, work or study groups, networks or communications, or decision-making without a good reason, or encouraging others to do the same, deliberately withholding information which can affect an individual's performance, appraisal, or attainment, career progression, promotion, setting unmanageable workloads or unreasonable deadlines, including, if I can say, giving to someone who is an expert menial tasks, overbearing and intimidating levels of supervision, and as we call it otherwise, micromanagement, deliberately undermining an individual's performance with constant criticism that is not constructive, deliberately undermining an individual by saying things or acting in a way that makes others question that person's professionalism, knowledge, abilities, work ethic, or expertise. So this is a smearing campaign. And spreading malicious rumors or gossip about that individual. So you might have not thought that some of these things here might have been bullying. And these things might happen. People might say this is office banter. It's someone trying to make a joke and it went very bad. But actually, people have to be aware that all of these things, and this is not an exhaustive list. I got that from our HR website, from our University College Union website, and from Landau lawyers in the UK who specialize in employment law, and ACAS, which is an arbitration, conciliation, and advice website for employees. So we can go to the next slide, please. Now, harassment is something different. It is defined under the following two laws. The first is the Protection from Harassment Act 1997, a UK law enacted to combat stalking and to protect individuals from harassment in a wide range of situations. Harassment is a criminal offence and involves a civil action and provides victims with multiple avenues for protection. The Equality Act 2010 defines harassment as unwanted physical, verbal, or non-verbal behavior related to a relevant protected characteristic. And I'm going to speak about those characteristics later on the next slide, which may intentionally or unintentionally violate an individual's dignity or create an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment. Next slide, please. Discrimination relates to the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and they define discrimination as treating a person unfairly because of who they are or because they possess certain characteristics. And I'm going to speak here based on the Equality Act of 2010, which are these 9 protected characteristics. And these are the age, disability, gender and gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, ethnicity, religion or belief, including lack of belief, and sexual orientation. Next slide, please. There are other ways of intimidating someone. There is also the so-called unwanted contact. Unwanted essentially means the same as unwelcome or uninvited, and it violates a person's dignity. And unwanted contact covers a range of behaviors like spoken words you don't want to hear, written words you don't want to read, like things like emails which can threaten someone, imagery, gestures at the workplace, mimicry, jokes or pranks that are not appropriate, or even physical contact. Next slide, please. When someone experiences these negative behaviors, they might consider raising a grievance. This might be in the workplace or raising a complaint, a student, because these behaviors become unsustainable for the physical and psychological safety of the person who experiences them. When someone decides to raise a grievance, they might experience further abuse in the form of victimization. And this is actually when people can really break. So victimization is unlawful under the Equality Act 2010. And it occurs when an individual has complained or intends to complain formally about all of the above negative behaviors, discrimination or other behaviors, or if this person has supported someone who has complained. So this might include this victimization depriving them from career progression and promotion opportunities. So you can imagine someone who's trying to raise a grievance and then having to, to experience the victimization on top of the actual abuse they have experienced. Next slide, please. There's another effect which started from experiences that many women leaders saw, witnessed, or experienced themselves in healthcare, in academia, in business, and the professions. It's called tall poppy syndrome. And it's affecting organizations at a very big level. So tall poppy syndrome, or TPS, is a term referring to poppies that grow higher than others and are cut down to size so that they are the same height as the flowers around them. Now, this is symbolic because this translates in the workplace. In the workplace, this tall poppy syndrome occurs when people are attacked, resented, ostracized, or bullied because of their success and achievements. And successful individuals are cut down in a symbolic way. So basically, they are reprimanded unnecessarily, unfairly, rather than being celebrated for their accomplishments. And although they're feeling they're doing exactly what they should be doing to thrive in their organization, then it might be that the leadership itself is doing this culling and it's this pruning, like the tall poppy syndrome suggests. Next slide, please. Now, all of these forms are negative workplace environment situations. And as Julie said, we all want to live in a kind environment. These behaviors are a form of violence. So anyone can be bullied, even people who are high ranking, and they can feel very lonely. It can have a huge impact on physical and mental health of people, teams, organizations, workflows. There's a preference towards women, unfortunately, or people for minorities who might be perceived as weak or in compromised or disadvantaged positions. And this happens because the bullies, the people who enforce these negative workplace environments, prey on vulnerability, but at the same time, they're afraid of power. So if the person who's been bullied reacts, if there are active bystanders who raise that immediately, then these people are not given the advantage of enjoying the bullying they're doing, but actually they're being stopped at the source. Because the blame and the shame lies with the perpetrators, not with the victims of bullying, and it has to change sides. And there are clear policies and procedures. In our university, thankfully, this procedure is called report and support, and I'm sure other universities might have something similar, where when something happens, you can immediately escalate and you will be seen by an expert team. And there will be even a proper investigation. Next slide, please. As I said, bullying is violence. Next slide. And as violence, Julie spoke about the ripple effect of kindness. When you're kind, people around you experience that kindness and they want to disseminate it further. I'm sure everyone here has heard similar things. Recently, the most recent one of my colleagues told me, I want to be a really good supervisor because I had a very good supervisor in you. So I really want to live up to that. And actually, for me, it's exactly the same. I had a lovely PhD supervisor, and I actually want to supervise like her, like she did it for me. So I think the kindness creates ripple effects, but bullying and violence create ripple effects. And when these effects multiply, they create what people call a toxic culture. And this is a very difficult place to be, because there is no respect, there is no appreciation, there is no love, and the environments are very difficult to navigate. Next slide, please. And the way it's impacting people is multiple. So on people experiencing or witnessing bullying, can be physical, people can have headaches, lack of sleep, mood swings, mental, emotional, people might cry, might feel worthless, psychological, they might impact their career progression because they might delay an application for promotion because they feel unworthy because of the bullying. Students, clinicians, academics, and managers can experience that. So it doesn't discriminate your career level. It can happen to everyone and anyone. On the organization, it creates, because of this culture shift, low morale, lack of trust, attrition, people are leaving, loss of talent that the universities or the hospitals or the society needs, impact on productivity and innovation because people ponder the effects of bullying on them. If they don't sleep, they don't work as well. So it's actually has a huge economic effect on the organization. Low team cohesion, lack of collaboration, bad reputation, and then this creates the organization that fosters or doesn't address bullying at its source. It becomes an undesirable employer. Next slide, please. In our specific area of academia, there are a lot of documents. I'm bringing here, because we work a lot on research, that the research exercise framework for researchers and academics who are refable, they can submit work for research. There's specific mention on the UKRI, UK Research and Innovation website, about preventing bullying and harassment in research and innovation, because exactly it impacts collaboration. And research relies massively on collaboration. In a culture that is toxic, there can be no collaboration and nothing positive can come out of that. Next slide, please. Also, some people might not know, since 2022, until 2022, I should say, health and safety at work have been a privilege. People who had it, they should be very happy and enjoy it and cherish it and try and maintain it. After 2022, the International Labour Organization mentions that health and safety at work, and this includes both physical and psychological safety, are a human right. So if someone is affecting your health and safety at the workplace, they're actually violating one of your key human rights. Next slide, please. And this is exactly the same. So this shows a bit more of the sources and the reference. Next slide. Thank you. So I think it's very fair to say that when we observe bullying and harassment, we should not tolerate it. It's either directed at us, our students, our colleagues, in society, in a hospital. We have to safely help, and we can help as active bystanders. We can help by establishing civility in the workplace or civility in society. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of things here, report and support in our university. There are other organizations, particularly in clinical practice. They have amazing training. So if you are clinicians, there is training that is called active bystanders, or civility saves lives, because incivility can cost lives in many ways. Lack of collaboration. Let's say, imagine in a theater, in surgery, the surgeon, the nurses, the radiographer don't work well together because there's a toxic culture. This can cost human lives, particularly in healthcare. You might look into your AHR guidance about procedures to escalate, your union guidance, We have UCU at City, harassment and bullying advisors at the university. You might have something similar. The ACAS guidance I mentioned before, and also you might want to seek legal advice. There are many nice websites, senior advisors in employment law, as I mentioned before. Next slide, please. This is the training, Civility Saves Lives, and this is the website. They explain a lot about rudeness in healthcare and the impacts on individuals, on employees, on patients, on managers, on the organization. Next slide, please. And the active bystanders. This is the bit I would like to say, because if someone witnesses or experiences incivility or negative workplace behaviors or bullying, and they don't escalate for themselves, of course they will suffer because this does not stop. But if they witness it for someone else, unwantedly, they become complicit. Because if you see something that is unfair, and if you don't speak up, you become complicit. And the ways by which you can help, you can address that behavior immediately if you feel it's safe, direct. You can distract or delay the bullying happening. So if you see something building up and then words coming out of people's mouths which are not right, you can try and distract or diffuse the situation by distract or delay. You can document it. So you can write, you can be either a witness if you saw someone else, or you can even write it for yourself in a formal document as grievance, or you can keep a diary if this happens again, or you can delegate and you can get someone else to get help. Next slide, please. And I would like to thank everyone. So this is the end of my slides. I would like to thank you all, and please also make sure that you have seen what I have on the chat. If you feel that this has actually been quite upsetting for you to think of experiences, we have a duty of care in healthcare. Healthcare is the area where you would expect more kindness, more compassion, and sometimes there are some really toxic environments that actually defy the whole culture or the whole remit of healthcare, which is about helping others. And this dissonance, this creates a cognitive dissonance, like we are here to care, but actually what we experience is the lack of care. Thank you very much.
Christina, thank you so much. And honestly, I think it's sobering always to see it in black and white. And but nevertheless, I think a lot of people probably have experienced this from time to time, and so it's important to address it. Martina, have we got slides? I can't remember did we have any slides on your side? Was it the Padlet?
No. We don't have slides. Now, I'm going only to echo 2 points from what Christina said, and then we can go through the Padlet and all the brilliant answers that all the participants gave to us. I would only want to echo what Christina said, that we have a duty of care. And when kindness is absent, then the workplaces can quickly shift into an environment where toxicity becomes normalized. And this may include, as Christina and Julie said, bullying, harassment, intimidation, and exclusion. And this can significantly damage the psychological safety. What I need also to highlight is that as individuals, we have a duty, the duty of care, and we have things to do. So, as in an individual level, everyone has a role in challenging unacceptable behavior respectfully, and also supporting colleagues who are struggling and modeling this everyday kindness through communication and teamwork. So the first step is speak up early. Rather than allowing these poor behaviors to continue. And this is key in order to prevent this toxicity to be normalized. Also, the leaders, the managers have their responsibility within their teams. They need open dialogue. They need to provide a safe environment for everyone to step up and seek the justice. And they need to explore what if there were bullying or what happened within their team. The leaders should prioritize the psychological safety, and they need to recognize the positive behaviors and create systems where the staff feel safe to raise concerns without fear. And the only thing, a last point to add is that I've read somewhere that people may forget what you said or what you did, but they rarely forget how you make them feel. And I found it so interesting. And I started thinking of my own experience when I was exactly Julie. It was my young girl. Thank you so much. She was an American poet and civil rights activist. And it's so important because I try to go back and think my own experience, and it was so true. I couldn't remember exact phrases or what exactly they told me, but I was remembering exactly how I felt. So don't be afraid and speak up. It's key. We can go back to Padlet if you want. For this, it's up to you.
Yeah.
You want to share the Padlet here? I can see that the first 5 questions were answered from many people, and it's good. Don't be afraid to go back and add your responses there. It's
Yes.
everything is anonymized, so don't be afraid to go back and write an experience or your own experience if you have ever considered leaving a workplace because of poor treatment. And this is so important because unfortunately we've seen this in everyday life, even in hospitals or in academia, and this is huge. And this environment has to change. We need to provide a safe environment for everyone. And for the end, because I would like to shift a bit the mood, because we discussed about so many things. And Christina, thank you so much for putting in the chat all the support any support that anyone can seek if they want to. I've put an appreciation exercise because I've realized that at least for me, where I work, there were good people there. There were people that helped me and people that were there for me, and they helped me when I had a difficult situation to deal with. And I think that this appreciation exercise is so effective because it can turn the concept of kindness from theory into the real world action. And it's by saying a simple thank you, by showing this behavior, this respectful behavior to someone who was there for you, it's huge, and it's so rewarding for your own experience, for your own life. So if you, as an exercise, I ask you if you want to go back to the Padlet and write a message for your colleague, for your friend, for your husband, partner, mother, father, for anyone who was there for you. If it was not only a colleague, just open this thank you message to anyone you think it deserves this thank you, and it was there for you to support you. Thank you so much for all these answers. I don't know, Fode, do you want to share this link and we can see this broadly? It's up to you.
We can do. I think, Nick, the actual link itself, will it be for everyone? I mean, I'm seeing what's coming through on my side, so I don't know if you've got access to it. I'm doing it via my phone. The link's there, isn't it? It's just it's whether or not we can just see what's coming up. But certainly I can read through them. I mean, there's some lovely messages coming through. You know, I mean, there's there's a big thank you in the appreciation messages. A big thank you to my incredible, strong, brave, and wonderful colleagues. I'm always inspired by you. You know who you are. Thank you for listening to me and being there on my good days and my bad days. Thank you to my fabulous work family, your support and kindness. You know, some lovely messages coming through. Do you know something I do want to share as a maybe a starting point for further discussion? And by the way, this is the culprit that is nibbling at my feet. So just so you know, that's the little thing there, Fluffy. So I've been working with radiographers for 23 years, and one of managers I dealt with very, very early in my recruitment days. One of my favourite ever managers I used to recruit for, and actually the feedback I used to get from the locums was that it was one of the favourite managers they had ever worked for. I returned to that workplace a couple months ago, really looking forward to going to see that manager who I knew was still there, only to find, unfortunately, she was off on stress leave. And when I found out a little bit more about, and I dug a bit deeper, actually, what I found was really upsetting, which was that the manager had, prior to that, had extremely, had been, had some extremely challenging circumstances by which actually she was accused of bullying as well. Now, do you know, when I think about this situation, I think about this manager that potentially had got into this frame of mind, this state of mind, that she'd been beaten so much by a very challenging system. But it certainly wasn't the manager that I'd ever known. And to know that she'd got into that situation, was really upsetting, because all I kept thinking to myself is, what support mechanisms did she have in place to help her? It certainly, as I say, wasn't the person I ever knew. I only ever knew a supportive manager that everyone liked to work with. So, it's and one of the things I want to ask the virtual audience and also yourselves is, I used to hear a lot, and this is more pre-COVID than it was post, I must admit. I used to hear it a role of freedom to speak up guardian. I used to hear it a lot, and it used to be a position which I felt that people could go to. But does it still exist? Are we still aware of freedom to speak up guardians, guys? I'd love to ask everyone if they're aware of it.
Forty, can I say here, I mean, I don't think this position exists per se, but at City St. George's, for instance, we have the bullying advisors. So basically, there are people you can go to and you can speak to if you are bullied, if you are harassed, if you have concerns about discrimination, all of these things we discussed, the negative working behaviors. They can speak. They will not speak up for you, but they can listen to you. And if they feel you are in a compromised and dangerous position, so if the bully becomes physical, they can help you escalate, because the person at that point, they might feel quite compromised, quite confused, and the anxiety that results from the bullying or the negative behavior per se, the effort to try and make sense of what is happening. Is it you or is it the other person? Because very often people start by saying, it does not feel right. This is not what I expected. And this happens many times until they actually say, okay, I have to do something about that. It really affects me. So they help in that journey. And particularly if someone decides to raise a grievance formally or a complaint formally, they can support with a mental, they can be like a sounding board that you can discuss, but they will not speak up on your behalf. So I don't know if the role you mentioned is someone who speaks up. It takes a lot of mental courage for someone to actually do that and take it on board as well. I can imagine. Is it something that you have seen happening in practice, or do you know of this role? I would be very interested to know it, Fodi.
Yeah, I mean, certainly what I'm seeing come through, actually, Christina, is that in some of the NHS places, it's still a role, which is very interesting. And I think that ultimately it's about understanding, how confident people feel. Looking at one of the mentions here from Kim, how confident people are to go, feeling like they're going to be able to get some resolution, right? And that's that's another challenge that we find. And I just want to also say, and I think again, and thank you everyone for the comments. Kim, had mentioned about we work in a caring environment, so it's really difficult to understand how these practices sort of come out. But it's also probably one of the most pressurized environments as well. And that's why I do a lot of work on the human factors aspect of it, to go back to basics, to be able to understand why we do what we do. And that's a theme that came out. And I'd love to touch on this particular subject with you all, if possible. But a theme that came out was during UKIO this year was this feeling of how we use the term resilience. Should we use resilience in in what context should it be used? Because I think, it kind of almost has been abused as a terminology. I see you animated there, Julie, and I think, I'd love to get your views on it. But but just to say to you, I think it's been abused as a term to such an extent that it's got, has so much negative connotations, when perhaps what we could be doing is supporting people to be able to bounce back, as opposed to just front it up and take it, because that's what resilience is, because that's where burnout comes out, and that's where we lose. And someone said to me today that the reason they left the NHS was because they were getting burnt out. And it's such a shame, because burnout comes sometimes through people losing that understanding of why they did, got into what they do, right? So,
yeah. Can I jump in there,
please? Yeah.
Fody? I absolutely. I had a slide that I took out because obviously I could have gone on for I could still be going now, but that I too think resilience is I think it's the wrong term, because I think you only need to be resilient. I mean, we're all used to, you're not getting this job, or that paper gets rejected, or this happens. That's life, but it's how that is supported, how you are supported. And if we exchange that resilience for compassion, for caring, for kindness, people would not get this job, or they would have that paper rejected, or they wouldn't get that grant, but they've got their sort of supportive bubble around them, will be a buffer for that. So you don't have to fight it and bounce back on your own. And if you don't do that, then you're a lesser being. We just need to care for each other, and in so doing, we can shift the lens from resilience, as exactly as you were saying, Fody, to compassion and kindness. Bad things or unpleasant things or difficult things will still happen, but we will feel supported and cared for, cared about. And the compassion fatigue that everyone speaks a lot about in clinical setting is that people get that constant compassion, that giving is draining, and we get fatigue. I think my other view, and I had a slide on this as well, but I had to take it out, is that actually if people only get exhausted from giving of themselves, I would say, when there are other factors impinging upon them. So yes, you do need to have some self-care, but people don't get tired of wanting to give, because that's who they are as individuals. It's the systems that let them down, and the leaders that let them down, I think, and that's probably because they don't all have what we need to have that compassion.
Definitely.
Yeah, sorry,
No, it's fine, Julia. Thank you so much for that, and I totally agree. Christina, just before I bring you in, just one thing I'll say to the virtual audience: if you've got any questions, please do fire them in, and we'll do our best to answer them in the next few minutes. But Christina. Sorry.
Yes, so I would like to say that in healthcare, as environment, whether this is a university like a health school, health and sciences school, or in a hospital, in a clinic, people expect, employees and patients and staff, they expect more compassion, because this is a place where people come, they're more vulnerable. Or you speak about pathology and disease, chronic disease. So when there is lack of compassion, in effect, the moral injury is higher. You don't necessarily expect compassion in a high intensity financial institution because they make money. This is the place to make money. You don't expect compassion. You expect perhaps some respect. But in a healthcare institution, in a school of health, in a school of medicine, you expect compassion because we teach compassion. And this incongruent, this inconsistency between words, teachings, and actions can actually damage someone very much, particularly if this is a young person, a student, or a young employee, who is either going to think this is probably the way to work. So we are creating there because they will be mimicking these behaviors. We probably are breeding the new bullies if they see this behavior because they say this is the state of things. Or they will say, well, actually, I came in here for compassion and care, and this is not a caring environment. I'm going, and this probably explains the massive attrition of healthcare staff, even in early career, middle career, later in the career, because they see this incongruence of words and actions and behaviors.
Do you know, just on that point, Christina, I think one of the interesting things now is we now have a huge number of generations in the workplace, right? And many of the leadership or management or whatever we choose to refer to them as are leading people that are of obviously a certain different generation and understanding of how what this all looks like. And one thing I just want to say on that point is I think there is quite a lot we can learn from each other. The whole mentor-mentee relationship, we often see it's a mentor relationship because someone's older and wiser, and I get that that's something. But if I refer back to my godson, who may or may not be in this virtual room producing right now, we have a mentor-mentee relationship which swings around very, very much. And I think if we had that mutual respect, actually, we'd probably get more out of our workforce as well. But perhaps I don't know if there's been any work done on this around the let's say the challenges and the opportunities around the generational workforce.
Julie, you might know more from all of us on that.
Sorry, it took me a little while to find the unmute. I think there was something. Was it called Mind the Gap? If Lauren's on the call, she might remember. But it was not so much looking from a compassion point of view, but how different generations, like generation whatever it is, Z, the baby boomers, and all of those different generations have different mindsets and different focus towards work. And whereas, somebody old like me might be in a job for life and might, feel that commitment, where very big generalization, but those of the younger generations would have a very different focus on what work was for them. It wasn't of who you are, it was more and that's an awful generalization, but I think that's what it said. It was it was about the importance, I guess, that different generations put on their work and the work-life balance. And I think many younger people are a lot less accepting of the work-life balance that maybe older people like me might just, it was Mind the Gap, thanks Kim, that might actually, I don't know, do I embrace it? Sometimes I think when I'm giving my all, I feel good for it. So it's like a drug maybe, and I give more and I give more and I work harder and I work harder. And then you get that stump of no culture of care, as Martina's beautifully explained. And then you think you have to go to the self-care for preservation. But I think the younger generations, I sound like an old woman, probably skip out that bit, and they know what their worth is maybe. They know that they should push back from this from the start.
Yeah, I often
otherwise,
say sorry, Julia. Apologies.
No, I was just going to say maybe we've got a study there that we need to investigate. with not just my thoughts on Mind the Gap, but
you know what I was going to add to that. Sorry, Christina. I was just going to very quickly say what I was going to add to that is I think there's a huge amount we can learn from the fact that that there was an environment where I think there was some recognition around going that extra mile, in the sense that that's how we viewed it. We viewed, we were going to, work slightly later because that's what, that's almost how we were, wired to do. But actually, I think there's a lot we could learn from the this is my time, this is my hours. I will work my damnedest during that time, and then when it's my time to go home, that's when it's ready to go. Sorry, Christine, I didn't mean to jump in on you there.
No problem. I think it was Giuseppe who said that this has to be taught and discussed in any and every institution, group, team, any place of where you expect people to collaborate. And I also want to say that you asked about generational differences. Adding to the moral injury that we are in a caring environment and we experience no care, if I can say that the younger people expect to be mentored by the more senior members of staff. And unfortunately, the statistics show that it's actually the more senior members of staff, the leaders, who are the ones who abuse this environment more. So imagine that you are going into a caring profession in a clinical environment and you look up to your leader only to be bullied by them in the worst way. So I can imagine how shocked this generation will be. Like, is it called the millennials? I don't even know. Generation X, Y, Z?
Alpha.
I don't even know. Yes, I don't know. But this generation, which is now in practice placements or they are newly qualified, they will absolutely feel total disappointment because they would have expected their managers, their supervisors, their lead radiographers to actually model appropriate behaviors. And when this person really models behaviors, their impact is massive, like the positive ripples, because they don't realize how many people in their institution look up to them. The opposite happens when this person is not worthy of having this position, because if you want, it's not the position that makes the leader, it's the leader that makes the position. And very often people have titles which are empty titles, and other people lead on the ground because they're caring, because they're compassionate, because they're fair, because they're inclusive, all of this stuff. So I really think that we absolutely need to have good leaders, to have good environments who are going to stop these behaviors immediately. Don't empower people to continue with that. They're going to bring an agenda of fairness and kindness at work. And this helps everyone. If someone bullies, it always comes back to them. It always comes back to them because the behaviors multiply, like Julie very nicely said. Thank you.
Absolutely. I just want to bring this point up from Giuseppe. So, and thank you for everyone who's put their comments in. Giuseppe says, thank you for this reflection. Maybe the goal is not to choose one generation over another, but to learn from each other. 100%. Older generations often bring commitment and dedication, while younger generations remind us of the importance of boundaries. Well, definitely. Balance and self-worth, integrating both perspectives could help us create a healthier and more compassionate work culture. Well, one of the things we wanted to do with this webinar tonight is actually raise the point that by talking about kindness in the workplace, it's the first stage to, allowing people to understand there are many of us that care about it, and you're not alone, and that you're not, you shouldn't have to fight it alone. So, it was really, really important for all of us to raise this topic this evening. And I think the other thing I wanted to say is that we also are at a crossroads junction, if you want my opinion on what I call it, around ensuring that we maintain radiography and healthcare in general as attractive careers to go into, right? Because I think we're at a stage now where we have to understand it is a very different environment to what it was, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and 30 years ago, depending on when people came in. And so, one of the things I want to address as part of everything that we do with the L&D companion is to ensure that we can help the students and help everyone to ensure that this remains a career that they would tell people to go into. And, I do fear that question. I mean, that was one thing I would say to you. I do fear that question. Would radiographers tell other people to become radiographers? And I'd like to think that the answer would be yes to that, but I would hope that, it might come with some guidance and practicalities, right? I'd love to just get your thoughts on that, guys, and then maybe we can just get some final thoughts after that. Who wants to go first?
Julie,
I've always got something to say.
Julie, you.
I think, I left clinical after 23 years in 2009 to come into education. Now you know how old I am. And 25. I left just before the government changed. Yeah. That's just how I look, Fody. I look 25. It's a special filter I've got on. I wish. And I left just before we had that change in government, and we got, and I think, not to get political, but the NHS that I knew was not a perfect place, but it was a good place which hadn't been run down, and I think it was then run down. You just need to look at the graphs in terms of funding. And as radiographers, we've got a really big pay rise, and I think we felt quite valued members of the community and healthcare community. And then my son's in the NHS as well, and it's a very different beast to what it was. And I do sometimes think, am I painting a picture of the NHS I knew to the students, that you can always stick fast to your values? Yes, there's a way of working around things, but also there are real pressures with money. There are, there's understaffed. We were understaffed in my day as well. And then I think everyone recognised during COVID that actually the NHS is one of the things that makes, one of the things that are good about this country, that we've got the NHS and we should be proud of it. And I think people started to recognise that again. And there was a lot, and we saw a surge in people wanting to do healthcare careers. And I think that's gone down now, and we're on the tail end of that. And there's a constant sort of bashing of the NHS, and we're not delivering this, and people are not delivering that, and how dare the doctors strike, and all this sort of thing. And I think we're in danger of people thinking this is not going to be a viable career option for me. And if you compound that with poor leaders, poor culture of care, poor work-life balance, poor pay, it's quite fearful to think who will be there to do that scan, to, hopefully I won't need radiotherapy, but for, if you need those, or who's going to nurse me, who's going to do my surgery. And I think that, like Kim's talking about a culture shift, we have to shift that. And all I can hope is that through education, we can do that with our students, but we have to get them in the first place. And then we have to not have other role models demonstrating behaviours that maybe would not be conducive to people even wanting to stay in the profession.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Correct.
I
no,
get on my high horse.
It's I'm just saying it's a sobering one, but nevertheless, if we don't tackle the question, we won't potentially know how to deal with it, right? So, I absolutely agree. I have some views, but Christina, please.
I would like to say that there is a lot of optimism. I mean, things are not nice now, but it might be that because we are reaching the bottom, and perhaps we're going to have a somersault to the top in the next 10 or 15 years. I just want to think positively, because I also have probably another 15, 20 years of my career, and I want to think of ways that this can be improved. So I'm thinking culture has to be at the top of the discussions, because people don't leave a profession for any other reason more than culture. If it's poor culture, if you get sleepless nights and you feel undervalued and you're bullied, people leave that place because it's bad for their health, physical and mental. So I think culture has to go back in the table. I think we have shortages. It's like a vicious circle, but I really think we have to harness the new technologies we have to ensure that we offer truly technology-enabled person-centered care. So it's not about using AI to get the MRI department going faster, but using AI to provide more reliable results earlier for better patient outcomes, and ensure that our staff can still have the breaks they need for their well-being. So going like a fast factory, like a factory of patients, is not going to help anyone. So a conveyor belt medicine model is not going to work with this generation. No. Nobody's going to like it, and this is not giving satisfaction to the people who are there either. The other thing I would like to say, Julie already mentioned that. So for culture, education is vital. For finding solutions in our complex healthcare problems, research is vital. And perhaps more mentoring. I know our college, the society and college, they have a lot of lovely mentoring schemes. And I know you participate in those schemes, Fodi. So the form which is for researchers and the one which is for leaders. So I think these discussions perhaps have to be ingrained into these mentoring schemes that the college has, if they're not already. Culture is really important. Thank you.
Yeah,
and thank
absolutely.
you to everyone who stayed tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Thank you, everyone, for joining as well. Genuinely, I think we could probably carry on with this topic for ages, and but genuinely, I think there could be an opportunity for us to continue this on in various ways, because I think it is an important subject that needs always continual sort of revision, almost to come back to. Maybe some last comments from the guys, if you don't mind, my wonderful panelists. Martina, anything you just want to add? Final comments?
Well, I agree with everything that Christina and Julie said, and I agree that culture is an issue, and a true culture of care is built when kindness is embedded as a core organizational value, supported by, leadership, visibility, accountability, and perhaps consistent action at every level. But we have to remain positive, optimists. We have to speak up, and we can do it. Is a motto that I used to. Unfortunately, I have to use this a lot these days. So we've got this. We are not afraid. We speak up, and we've got this. Just stay positive, stay optimistic.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Martina. Julie?
Yeah, I think that speaking personally, even in some dark times, there can be some positives. So even through some very, very difficult situations that may have been going on a long time and have shifted, you then come across a group of people that you hadn't met before, and they are there, and you feel like you've known them and loved them for many a year, because not only have you got your bubble that have been looking after you for a while, but you've now got this new bubble, and you feel like you've known them for years. So although it might seem that it's a very, very long, dark forest that you're in the middle of and you can't see where the trees end, you've got some people helping you. And as long as we've still got people like us, I would say, there to help each other and ourselves, there's hope. And that's sometimes all we need to keep us going. But it would really help if we had a culture that embraced care and compassion and love. but otherwise, we've got people there to support us.
Definitely. Thanks, Julie. Christina?
I think Julie said it all. I think it's about people. So if someone creates a negative culture, you can only counteract that with a positive spin, a positive culture. That, love is stronger than hate. And
Yeah.
I would like to stay on that. That's, there are many kind people, many people who are considered. So I'm going to think only of them tonight. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, do you know what? As I say, having an opportunity to do tonight's webinar has been an absolute honour for you to join us and for us to tackle this quite emotive topic, but nevertheless something that I think is the first stages for, as you said, people understanding that there is support and mechanisms out there, and this is what I'm trying to develop and create with the Skilled Personnel Network. And I think slowly but surely, as more people join, we can all, start to build a strong community. I'll leave you just on one last thought. There was a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and whilst it was out there for those in the perhaps may suggest in the financial workplaces, there was one thing that it said in this book, and it said that if you're not happy with something, stand up, make a change. Don't let it manifest. Don't let it eat you, because that's when we have that challenge of almost the behaviours sort of becoming right, and that for me sort of stood up as a mantra for me to think, do you know what, actually self-efficacy, as my friend Kerry Mills, who may or may not be in the virtual room, I'm not sure, but said to me that if we can create more self-efficacy that we within radiographers that we can develop, we'll have more influence, we'll have more seats at the table, we'll be able to deal with some of these challenges that we face, and I think we'll be much stronger as a unit thereafter. So thank you very, very much for everyone who joined. It's lovely to see your messages coming through. I'm so delighted. Julie, Christina, Martina, thank you so much. If I can keep you wonderful people back just for a couple of minutes, that'll be amazing. And thank you everyone for joining, and we are highly appreciative, and we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
What a lovely audience. Everyone contributed to this amazing session. It just made me very emotional to see people staying so late.
Me too.
Me too.
So late.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.